Are you tired of budget build guides that either rely on used parts from eBay or they'll play Fortnite using integrated graphics on absolute garbage settings? Come on. I'm going to show you a build for only $400 that's going to play every game at 1080p, 60 frames per second in either high or ultra details. That's right. Stay with us. Before we get stuck into it, I want to ask you again, please take a moment and like the video, subscribe, and click the bell button. We're a brand new channel. I really appreciate all the support we've gotten so far. It's really been amazing. 2 videos. I couldn't imagine it had gone any better whatsoever. So please stick with us. This is the kind of content we're going to be putting out. And in the future, as we grow, we're not just going to be talking parts lists. We're going to be putting these things together. Okay, here we go. So how do we get a build for $400 that has an RX 570 in it? Great graphics card for the money. And has performance-wise the same performance as a Ryzen 5 2600. We're going to use AMD's brand new chip that they just launched, or however you want to look at it, relaunched, which is the Ryzen 5 1600 AF. Now, if you didn't watch my last video, this is a relaunch of the old 1600 on 12 nanometer, not 14 nanometer, 12 nanometer. So in terms of the performance, it is identical to the 2600. If you were thinking about doing a build with a 2600, stop, go hit your head against the wall a couple times. Don't do that because you're just about to burn $30 to $40 for absolutely no performance increase. This is the chip that you want. This is so far only available on Amazon. I'm going to have a link to this in the description below if you're looking for it. It's kind of hard to find the first time on Amazon. Don't buy the old Ryzen 5 1600. Make sure it's the AF, and that's this one right here. This is the AF in the box. And don't get thrown by the name that I've got here in PC Part Picker because they don't have it in there just yet. That's our CPU. Phenomenal performance for $85. Oh my goodness. What we've got here is the ASRock B450M Pro 4. This is a great board. You know, it's a really nice budget board. There's not much in way of features that it doesn't have. The VRM is adequate. It's got 2 really great heat sinks on it. It's got 4 memory slots. It's got 3 system fan headers, which I really like. The one thing I'm going to say about this board, the audio, if you look at the audio solution here, it kind of sucks. Yeah, you can see 2 capacitors there. That's not a whole lot of pop, right? So if you're going to be plugging in headphones, if you're going to do anything other than plug this into a much better digital digital analog converter, then I'd look to get a different board. And that in this case, for only $1 more, we've got the MSI Performance Gaming. God, why does everything have to have gaming in the name? The MSI Performance Gaming B450 Micro ATX board. This has a much better audio solution to it. You can see right here, many more capacitors. At least physically it looks a lot better. It's got a much better reinforced PCIe 16 slot. Does only have 2 DIMM slots on it. You know, whatever, that's fine. I mean, are you going to put more than 2 in? Probably not. And then it only has 2 system fan headers, but frankly at this budget, are you really going to have a system with more than that? You can always get a fan splitter. I'm going to do a couple of upgrades. I'm going to show you in just a moment where we're going to add in both some quality of life features and we're going to improve the performance of the machine. This machine is really set up for max FPS for the lowest cost possible. So we did only go with 8 gigs of DDR 3200 memory. I actually had a 3000 kit in here. And then just before I started taping this, it sold out on Newegg. So I grabbed the 3200 kit, which was only a couple of dollars more. Remember the memory kit that you got, you're going to want to buy an identical one when you go to upgrade. That way they have the same timings. It's very important. We're going to be using the Asus ROG Strix Radeon RX 570 gaming overclock, blah, blah, blah. It's an RX 570 4 gigabyte card. That's all you really need to know. Could you go and buy an 8 gig card? Sure. When they first came out, there was a lot of testing done. showed that, yeah, 8 gigs, 4 gigs, it didn't really matter at this level of performance. As you go up the ladder in terms of performance on your graphics card, the memory does matter. At this level, doesn't really. Feel free to buy a 4 gigabyte card over an 8 gigabyte card and don't worry about it whatsoever. Now, I know at the beginning of the video I knocked the whole used parts from eBay. If you are absolutely insistent on saving every last dollar, you can still pick up some of these older mining cards, the 570 4 gigabyte cards on eBay. I still see them around 80 or 90 bucks. To me, that's not enough money to save in order to go with that level of uncertainty. Now, there are some distributors who have bought huge lots of these cards and they've got tons and tons of them and they test them rigorously and everything. If you can find a seller like that, great. Otherwise, I would just go ahead and buy this new. This is a phenomenal graphics card for the money. Okay, here come the pain points in the build. It's only 400 bucks, so you knew at some point we were going to make some deep, deep trade-offs. Here's deep trade-off number one. The storage, say goodbye to your solid state drive. Now, if you've got a solid state drive in another machine that you can take out and pour it into this thing, fantastic. I'm assuming you're building this from the ground up. We're going to go with a Seagate Barracuda 500 gigabyte drive. And yes, it's only got a 16 megabyte buffer, but it spins at 7,200 RPM. It's a highly rated drive. Frankly, unless you're going to get a solid state drive, 16 megabytes cache, 64 megabytes cache, it doesn't really matter. You're never going to tell the difference. All right, let's talk about the case. I actually like this case quite a bit. It's the Roswell Micro ATX Mini Tower. The only thing I'm looking at this price point is a case that is not utterly garbage, that has at least enough airflow. And frankly, if I felt like this didn't have enough airflow, I would have, in the part picker, I would have added some fans. And frankly, with some nice RGB touches on it, this case actually looks really great. I've seen it in other builds in PC Part Picker. It's got a lot of really satisfied customers, and I'd recommend it. You want to spend a little bit more money on the case? Go right ahead. This is dirt cheap. Okay, and we're going to spend a millisecond on the power supply. I like to put at least 100 watts extra, so a 400 watt power supply would be all you need. It just so happens that as I'm doing the build guide right now, that we've got a 500 watt power supply, happens to be the cheapest 80 plus or better certified one. $36, $37. Sometimes you can get them for 30 bucks. That's about what you're looking to spend, somewhere between 30 and $40 here. Okay, now let's talk upgrades now that we've got the build out of the way. If you have another $50 to spend, what would I upgrade? Number one, you could look at adding some more system memory to it. That will definitely help increase your FPS. 16 gigs over 8 gigs is a nice little bump up in frame rate. Honestly, though, I'd take the money and I'd invest it in a GTX 1650 Super. Yes, you could go an RX 580 or an RX 590 at this price point, especially if you found one on 590 on super sale. But, those Polaris cards, I really feel like they're kind of getting towards end of life. Do you want to buy a card right now that's towards the end of life? The reason we would do so with the 570, it's the dirt cheap option that we can get in at the ground level. But as we start to think about going up, we would now want to think more and more about the quality of our parts. And AMD, you're killing us with the RX 5500 XT pricing. The performance does not justify the price right now. Please lower it. I would love to be able to recommend those cards, but I can't right now because the 1650 price to performance kicks the snot out of it. Help. Okay, now let's look at if you had $100 more to spend. I've got two different options for you here. Let's first look at max FPS. So in this case, we've upgraded to 16 gigs of DDR4 3200 memory. That's probably after you do the graphics card to a 1650 level, that's probably the next place I would go is upgrade this memory. And then we're going to dump the rest of that money into not just a 1650, but a 1660 Super. This one happens to be on sale right now for about $200. I think this is $189 right now. It's a good price. You can usually find regular 1660s for this price. This is not the 1660 Super, but it's still a great price for performance. All right, for those of you who are like, you know what, the 1650 Super is going to be fine. What else could I upgrade to get some better quality of life in? Well, again, the first thing I would do is I would upgrade the memory. The next thing I would do is I would look at upgrading the storage. So to me, just even thinking about going back to a spinning hard drive as my main boot drive, it sends shudders up my spine. Really, it does. So what I did in this case is I added a 120. I don't know that that's the way to go. You just think about spending more money and getting a 500 gigabyte hard drive that's a solid state drive. In this case, I added a 120 that would just serve as the boot drive. Then I think you want to look at upgrading the case. I really like this case. You know, I know DIY PC makes some really god-awful looking cases. They're dirt cheap on the build quality usually. This one's not so much the case. It's got decent airflow. Decent. I'm not good, but decent. And frankly, when you look in this thing, it's got a PSU shroud. That's nice. It's got some nice cable management. All the comments and the reviews on it actually really like the case. It only comes equipped with one rear 120 millimeter fan. And again, now this fan's 120 millimeter. The case before was 80 millimeter, a very small fan. So what I've done here is I've gone ahead and I've added in an Arctic P12. This is a highly rated 120 millimeter fan. It's not a PWM fan. Doesn't really have to be. I would add this in for another $6. Throw that in the front of the case. You can probably even find ones in white if you want to get a white. You may even be able to find an RGB fan on sale for, you know, maybe $1 or $2 more if you want to do that as well, since it does have the nice clear side panel on it. That's a $500 build total. So that wraps us up for this time. Please, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the video and make sure to click the bell icon. Again, we're a brand new channel. All of your support means so much. And frankly, I got to tell you, I never thought we'd see this much success with just 2 videos so far. This is our 3rd. And we're excited to launch content every single week on the weekend. So thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't checked out our other videos, they're somewhere around there. And we'll catch you on the next one.